Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn McEntee. I'm your host for Spotlight on Youth. I'm so excited to be here. I have three wonderful guests tonight. We are here actually nighttime and we're hanging out on Zoom, doing a little interview with each other, spotlighting you and the community and spotlighting all these wonderful youth making change. That is what Spotlight on Youth is all about. It's about making change and stepping outside the box, being leaders in our community and being involved in innovation moving forward. If you have an idea for a show, feel free to reach out to lynn@youthforchange.ca. Always interested in your ideas moving forward. And lots of ways for you to get involved at Spotlight on Youth, Youth for Change Canada. My first guest, actually, I'll just have my guests introduce themselves and then we'll kind of go into doubling back to Jane and talking about her work. So, hello, Jane.
Hi, my name is Jane, and I'm one of the co-founders of Neophyto Foods. We're a plant-based alternative startup, and our goal is to make plant-based alternatives that taste good, but are also good for the planet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And then we'll go over to whoever wants to go next, either Veronica or Stephanie. You choose.
I can start. My name is Stephanie Lamb. I am currently a postdoc at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada in Alberta, but a few of us have started a new University of Guelph Toastmasters Club. So some of us are founding members, and I'm currently acting as president. And we're excited to talk about it for the show.
Yeah, and I'm Veronica Fursova. So I'm in my second year in the animal biology program at the University of Guelph. And I'm also a founding member of U of G Toastmasters along with Stephanie. And I'm currently the acting vice president of public relations.
That's awesome. Thank you. Sometimes we just go right into the bio of our guests, but I thought it'd be nice since there's four of us tonight for our viewers to get a chance to say hello to you right away. I'm going to start out with Jane, and Jane mentioned who she is and where she's from. I'll just read a little bit of her bio more so to give you a bit more in-depth knowledge of who she is as a person, as a contributor to our community. Jane Ong is a co-founder of Neophyto Foods, a startup that strives to make plant-based alternatives that are better for the environment. Their products are currently sold in physical and online retailers across Canada. Jane has experience in both product development and sensory evaluation, and her specialty is in optimizing the texture of various food products through the use of hydrocolloids and gums. Prior to founding Neophyto Foods, Jane was a food scientist at Dosoblime.
Dose biome.
Thank you very much. Where she was the lead person responsible for overseeing food product development and scaling up of new products. She also worked at the University of Guelph, where she provided sensory evaluation expertise and led various research projects around texture optimization. Jane obtained a Master of Science in Food Science from the University of Guelph and a Bachelor of Science in Food Science and Nutritional Science from McGill University. Please welcome our guest, Jane. And hi, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful bio. That's amazing. I'm so happy to hang out with you tonight. Thank you a lot. So I was just wondering, Jane, if you could just start out with you as a student. Just take our viewers for the journey. It is about Youth for Change, and we're spotlighting youth and community and innovation and leadership. Your leadership journey started as a student.
Yeah.
If you could sort of walk our viewers through and listeners through how you started where you're at today. You studied at the University of Guelph.
Yeah, so it actually the story goes back to my undergrad actually at McGill. So funnily enough, even though our company started at the University of Guelph, my co-founders, we all actually met during our undergrad at McGill University. So
cool.
I had gone to the University of Guelph to do my master's, and while I was there, one of my friends from undergrad, he had become vegan, and so he kind of just approached me to want me to help him make a vegan cheese because he was from Quebec and he couldn't find any good vegan cheeses out there. So there was a competition on campus at the time called Project Soy, and I think it's still going on, and essentially it was just a product development competition to do something with soy. So there was some money provided to the participants as sort of a product development money. So we just joined for that, and we ended up winning with a soy-based fermented cheese. So we we got a lot of feedback from it, and a lot of people encouraged us to pursue it and do something with it. So with the help of, the Accelerator Guelph program at the University of Guelph, which is targeted towards grad students or research that comes out of university, we began the commercialization process. And in the meantime, I had another friend from McGill University who had also moved to the GTA area, and he had a background in business and finance. And so the three of us kind of banded together and decided to pursue founding a company.
Oh, that's wild. That's so cool.
Yeah.
In terms of your research and how you sort of got to where you are with that, and the I guess that channel of why you wanted to go there, how did you go down that road actually, and why that type of research and why?
Yeah, so I guess I've always been really interested in, like food. I love food, so food science was an easy choice. But I guess in terms of my actual research, it started in undergrad when I did an internship at a university. I did some research there with sensory evaluation. I actually originally was more interested in bread, and then the research I did was looking at how the different ways we chew bread can affect, first of all, like our experiences and also kind of the digestion aspect of it. And that really got me into sensory evaluation. I think it's really cool to be able to, see how customers actually eat the product. And it feels a lot closer to the product than, if you're on the more theoretical side, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, that's a lovely description. The interest in bread, yeah. So if you could sort of, for anybody who doesn't know, and for us that did not study that, why sort of that association, if you don't mind, and why bread?
I guess dough to me is very fascinating. It's something that you can make at home. Flour and water itself is a dough, but by adding different things, you can make it into so much more. Like cakes, cookies, breads, and all of these, they're just, different iterations of mixtures of flour and water, even noodles and pasta and things like that. But bread is interesting because I think it exists in almost every culture, and every culture does it slightly differently. Some cultures use, flours with higher gluten content. Some cultures, like, for example, the Mexicans with tortillas, like, corn tortillas don't actually contain gluten. So it's just very interesting how, every culture has their own take on certain things. I think every culture also has dumplings. That's also quite funny. Yeah.
It's interesting to say that. I love that experience when I first started teaching international students. That was actually what I noticed. Everybody, it was bread and dumplings.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so cool. It's sort of the beginning of life and the beginning of relations, really, that with each other, spending time with each other, and it kind of goes through time, even just the stories of bread and oral storytelling. So that's really neat. Very cool. And would you mind if I ask about, maybe some of the other guests might have some questions as well, but if you don't mind if I ask about the digestion aspect of things in terms of food science, and could you maybe enlighten us there and why that took you to that type of research?
Yeah, so the digestion process in your body, it actually starts in your mouth. So your mouth has enzymes called amylase that break down starches, and then obviously the chewing process also breaks down larger food pieces into smaller food pieces so that they are more easily digested in your body. So for example, if you swallow food whole, it actually would take a lot longer time to digest once it actually reaches your stomach, because your enzymes and your acids in your stomach start from breaking down the outside, and then slowly it gets to the inside, if that makes sense. So the way we eat can actually affect, for example, our glycemic response. I think there was a study done a couple of years ago that looked at, when people eat rice, if you eat it with a spoon versus eating it with chopsticks, you can actually have a different glycemic response that comes out of that, because when you eat rice with a spoon, I think it has to do with the size of the bites. I don't want to quote the results of the study because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I know that there are differences, between your utensils and how your body actually digests food.
That totally makes sense. Absolutely. Distribution, really, right? When we think about it, and how fine, minute it is when you're using sticks as opposed to scooping it in with a spoon or a fork, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally that. Any of our guests at this moment want to jump in with a question?
Yeah, I'm actually curious about the methods of your experiment. What did you look at and what did you find?
So when I was looking at the study with breads, the goal of the study was just to see, if we take the same ingredients and we process it different ways, how, you know, how that translates to, the experience someone gets while they're eating it. So we did a baked bread and then a steamed bread and also a baguette, which has like a harder and crispier crust. And, we looked at, how different processing methods can affect our I guess, how we chew and things like that.
That's interesting. Stephanie, anything at this? Yeah.
Sure. Just a quick question. Firstly, I congratulate you for being able to take your research and apply it to industry and something that's beneficial for agriculture. And I went through my master's and PhD so focused on my research that I couldn't see the big picture sometimes. So that's a huge accomplishment. I'm just wondering if you, I know the commercialization process can be very complicated, and if you had any challenges that you wanted to mention.
I mean, I would say I don't think we've completely overcome all of them yet. Commercialization is difficult. I think, before I started my company, I remember when my friend and I we were thinking about whether or not we wanted to do this. We kind of had this idea that, starting a company, all there is to it is making a product and then you just sit back and watch the sales come in. There, it turns out there's a lot more that goes into the marketing and the sales aspect, even scaling up something. So, my role in the company is much more on the production and product side of things. So, when you make something in a kitchen, you have a certain recipe, but then if you multiply this by 100, 1,000 times, the methods of doing it suddenly change. And then there are different things that you have to keep in mind that weren't present previously. And so there's a lot of things that go into it that I guess, you kind of start to realize as you do things, which is definitely an interesting learning experience.
That is, it's huge, actually. I think that's the biggest part when you first get started, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would you mind if we, sorry, we're going to jump into the company as well, but could we speak about and sort of the health and balance of working in bread and maybe the research that you've done in and around that in terms of how bread affects people in terms of their digestion?
So, I mean, my research is actually not specifically in bread. So right now we work a lot more with plant-based alternatives. Yeah, so in the vegan side of things. And I guess for us, there have been a lot of studies that show the health aspects of a vegan diet, but I think our motivations are more so on the environmentally friendly side of things. So one of my co-founders, he's an ecologist, and so that was a big reason why he had originally become vegan, because he realized that there are a lot of things you can do to save the environment, but one of the biggest changes that a lot of us can make is just to reduce our meat consumption. And I think we kind of want to, with our company, we want to sort of give people opportunities to reduce their animal product consumption. We don't necessarily want to completely eschew animal products and say that they're awful. I think that there is a place for some animal products, but I think that it's also unnecessary to eat meat like 3 times a day for 5 times a week. I think there is a lot of space for reduction, and I think that can do a lot to ease the environmental impact of animal husbandry.
As far as in educating the public about that, how have you found that?
So I think that the environment around veganism has definitely changed in the past 5 years. I remember, when I was doing my undergrad, veganism was sort of a very esoteric thing that only, weirdos did. And now I find that it's so much more mainstream. A lot of celebrities are going vegan. A lot of people are starting to realize that, there are environmental impacts of going vegan. Another big reason why people go vegan is, the sort of animal welfare side of things. And, health also plays a big aspect. I think Netflix has been releasing quite a few shows, and some movies around veganism, and how, you have athletes who are now going vegan and they found that it helps their performance. So I think that, the climate around this topic has definitely changed, and a lot more people are starting to be more receptive to going vegan. I think one of the biggest barriers is that people don't like to try that hard, and so they want an easy way to go vegan. They don't want to go vegan if it's too expensive, if the foods don't taste good, if there's all these barriers to going vegan. And that's kind of some of the things that we're trying to help as well. Cost is a big thing. That's something that we struggle with as well. But at the end of the day, I think there are a lot more people would go vegan if the products were priced the same as meat and provided the same kind of satisfaction that people got from eating meat.
Any comments at all? Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Jane. That's awesome. I do have actually a couple of questions. I just wanted to jump in. Thank you. I wonder then if you can now jump into sort of the story of the company and the business plan and how you actually got it up and running, from if someone was interested in sort of taking something like this on themselves. I do hear that it's becoming more popular in conversation and people are jumping on board. How could they go about doing something like that if they wanted to take on a business plan moving forward?
So our journey has been a bit kind of circuitous, I would say. As I mentioned, we started as a vegan cheese company. We started selling vegan cheese. So we were kind of, we started kind of at the end of my master's, when we were doing this for a product development competition. And we really only started getting serious about it, I think, in the end of 2019. That's when one of my co-founders and I quit our jobs and decided to do this full time. And that was when we were trying to sell cheese. So we started by selling our product to wholesalers, to places like caterers, restaurants, and also hospitality groups. And so that was going pretty well. And then obviously COVID happened, and we basically picked the worst industry to target with the pandemic. Pretty much all our clients closed down overnight. I think, our clients who were catering towards Toronto businesses, when everyone started working from home, they suddenly didn't have a job. We actually were selling to the University of Guelph hospitality group for a while, but then obviously the schools closed down. So we really had to kind of go back to square one and think about things. At the same time, our production facility also had closed down for our cheese product, and scale up was quite frustrating, and it's quite difficult because the process was a bit more complicated than normal products. So around, I think, June of 2019, June of 2020, we kind of all just like sat down together and we're like, look, this cheese thing isn't really going anywhere right now. If we want to move forward, we need to come up with a new product. So let's launch a product in July. So on the 1st of June, we decided that we're going to take a month's time and we're going to launch a product. We're 2 weeks late, but we did launch another product in the middle of July, and that was a plant-based meat kit. I actually have one right here.
That's cool.
It's so basically it's kind of it's all dry goods. It's shelf stable. There's only 5 ingredients inside, and you can make it. It makes about a pound of ground meat that's vegan. So ground meat in quotation marks, because it's all plant-based. But one of the things we realized with the cheese was refrigeration was an issue. So the fact that, we had to refrigerate it, that made it a lot harder to sell to retailers, especially when they were concerned about store space and things like that with the pandemic. And, if we wanted to sell e-commerce, we realized that, we needed something shelf stable to be easy to ship. And so that's kind of how we came up with this product. And it's been doing so pretty well so far. We started getting into retailers, I think, at the end of 2020, and we're slowly growing from there. We have new products on the line, and so we're trying to kind of do that. But I guess my advice would be, if you want to start a company, do it. Don't give yourself too many excuses. We kind of all, when we decided to quit our jobs and do this, our thoughts were that, if we, right now we're young, we don't have much to lose, we don't have families who are depending on us and things like that. So if all else fails, we've gotten experience, and that's not for nothing. So yeah, we just kind of looked at it as an adventure.
That is so cool. I'm so inspired by that. Congratulations on moving it forward, but
Thanks.
yeah, rotating and just offering another product. That is so cool. Any questions at all from Stephanie or Veronica? You're good. Can I ask about the team? So you mentioned your partners, so that's really important for the success of a company, and yeah, the different roles that you play. So for a company like this especially, you had to pivot on a dime when this happened and offer another product really quickly. So who are the team and what are your roles?
Yeah, so my role, as I mentioned, is on the product side. So I'm essentially in charge of, all the product operations aspect of things. And then Camille is my other co-founder. His background is in ecology, and he's taken more of the marketing aspect of things, and that side of things. And then Ethan, who's the last co-founder, he has a business finance background. So he's doing a lot of the sales, finance, a lot of the data administrative stuff as well. So that's kind of how we split up on our kind of on the high level. And then we also have we also hired other people. Like I think we have a designer. We have a couple of co-op students who are helping out in the product operation, sales, and marketing aspect of things as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations on that team. All right. Very cool. That's super cool. Just checking our time here. I think we're still pretty good for time. I wondered if we can kind of jump around in conversation a little bit and just maybe include Veronica and Stephanie as well. And your leadership skills, Jane, obviously you need a lot of leadership skills to do what you're doing. And you said you're familiar with Toastmasters, and our guests are here representing Toastmasters today, Stephanie and Veronica. And how important is it to you as a business person, but as a student, and offering advice to any young person out there to work on your leadership skills and presentation skills?
I think, for sure, presentation skills are extremely important. So from what I know, I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I know of Toastmasters, my friend was telling me that, it really, really helped her kind of gain confidence in speaking and expressing herself. For us, I would say, one of the biggest things that you use presentation skills for are pitch competitions. That's how we get a lot of our capital to run things. We didn't want to use our own money, so we pitch a lot. And when I first started, I maybe Stephanie can relate, but I was a master's student in the science realm, and you know how we do our presentations. It's very robotic. It's not fun to watch. You don't show much emotion, and that's not really the way you go about winning pitch competitions. So it's been quite a process to really relearn how to present myself and be a lot more animated with the way I talk. So that's definitely been really interesting. And in terms of leadership, I would say, for us, what we've realized is that there's so much that we don't know. So oftentimes, we rely a lot on our mentors to help us. And I think letting our employees know as well that we don't know everything, I think it helps them feel more comfortable coming forward with suggestions and things like that. And what we really want to do is to build an environment that is collaborative, that allows different ideas to come up, and we don't claim to know all the answers. I mean, we're all young, and it's not like I've been in the workplace for like decades and things like that. So there's always a lot of new ideas that can come up that I might not be aware of myself. And I think that's important in a leadership role.
Oh, that is so fresh, Jane. That is awesome. That really is. And that's inspiring just to listen to and to know that you collectively have that philosophy. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to double back to you at some point, but we'll introduce our other guests as well. And if you don't mind, I'm going to start with Stephanie, if that's okay.
Sure.
And I'll just read a little bit more about you, and we'll just kind of carry on our conversation, and you and Veronica can loop in together. Do you want me to read both your bios and then we kind of carry on the conversation, or does it matter?
Up to you.
All right, thanks so much. Stephanie Lamb, postdoc researcher for Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, University of Guelph alumni. Stephanie is the president and club sponsor of the University of Guelph Toastmasters. She is passionate about agricultural research, specifically in livestock and meat science. Stephanie studied at the University of Guelph for many years, completing her Bachelor of Science, Master of Science, PhD in Animal Science. Over these years, the City of Guelph and the University campus became her home and community. Her personal and professional growth through Toastmasters led her to realize the benefits of Toastmasters in her life, and led her to start a new club on campus with the vision of connecting students to young and experienced professionals to share their experiences and give opportunities to young students to gain core communication and leadership skills. Wow, that's awesome. That's very cool. And I think I'll just go right into Veronica and then we can kind of open up the conversation. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for sending that in. Appreciate that. And Veronica Versova, animal biology student at the University of Guelph. Veronica's second year. She is a founding member and acting vice president of public relations at the U of G Toastmasters Club. She is passionate about veterinary medicine and its application in research and enjoys assisting with various trials. Veronica is a new and founding member of the U of G Toastmasters and is hoping to gain experience for the interview process for the Ontario Veterinary College. She has been excelling in her Bachelor of Science program and is very active in the community and in research. She is a young leader in progress. That's awesome. Thank you. Welcome, Stephanie, and also Veronica.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here as representatives of Toastmaster today, and thank you for just taking the time. I'm so thrilled to shine light on you, the work that you do, and maybe for anybody else that's never had that experience before. Yeah, so Stephanie, I'll start out with you. I wondered if you can kind of take us through and how we kind of met up. This is an opportunity for Toastmasters to shine light on what's going on, and we're talking about leadership and innovation today and spotlight on you. So how could we tie that into our conversation today on Toastmasters Club and yourself, your contributions, and then your colleague Veronica?
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
Well, Jane gave a great example of using communication and leadership in her career and in her professional life. And for us, well, I'll start with what Toastmasters is. Toastmasters International is a nonprofit organization that works with over 16,000 clubs all over the world. And University of Guelph Toastmasters is one of those. Veronica and I are founding members. And we really want to provide a community and a space that's positive and supportive for young professionals like Veronica, myself, and Jane to learn these communication and leadership skills and be mentored by experienced members and learn from each other. And there's also many leadership opportunities. For example, taking on officer roles like president or VP of public relations, which Veronica is taking on right now. And yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free.
So why did you want to do that for yourself?
Oh, for myself.
Yeah.
Right. So as Jane mentioned, we have a lot of presentations and we go to conferences, we speak to the public and other researchers in our master's and PhD programs. And of course, it is sometimes quite dry. We don't really have that opportunity to learn about how to communicate effectively about our research. So I looked for a club in Guelph and I joined Guelph Public Speakers, another club in Guelph. And I gained confidence. I practiced for my defense presentation, for my conference presentations, and I made a lot of really amazing friends and mentors. So I loved it so much that I want to stay, and I love Guelph so much that we wanted to expand our club and make the new club at the University of Guelph and try to encourage more students to get involved because we really think that Toastmasters is very beneficial at a younger age, especially people like Jane, who's starting her career and her business, and it can be really beneficial for us.
Well, that's amazing for sure. And sort of leaving yourself open and surrendering to the moment of learning all these new skills, right? And Coming from the teaching background myself, I often find that those skills really should come in at a very early age. And it's nice when you can teach that early, but many of us as adults don't have those and really thrown into those presentation moments, right? So, no, for sure. So your work in terms of presentation and leadership, you've gained confidence. We talk about sometimes presentation being crippling for people. Have you ever had that crippling moment where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it? And how did you overcome something like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
There have been presentations that my voice is shaking and my hands are sweating, and I have people come up to me after saying, "Are you okay?" Because it was just, I was so nervous, and I didn't realize it until after. And I really enjoy sending a message and educating other people, and I wanted to do that effectively. And
Mhm.
that's why I really needed to join Toastmasters. And now I really joined to help myself, and I really want to join to help and stay and help others, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah, for sure. Jane, any questions before I jump over to Veronica at this point? Or?
Yeah, I was just wondering, so what was the difference between the Guelph public speaking club and the Toastmasters that you founded after?
Right. So every club has sort of their own community, and it really depends on who's part of the club. And we all follow the general Toastmasters kind of outline, but with the people within the club, we adjust it to meet our members' needs. So we have weekly meetings that have prepared speeches, table topics, which helps us practice impromptu speaking. So you're asked a question and you answer right on the spot, and also evaluation so that we can learn to be better the next time we step up and speak. But we can adjust it so that we may have an open mic portion of the meeting. And uh, other differences between clubs kind of makes their own little micro community. So the University of Guelph one is, we're a very diverse club. We have young professionals, experienced professionals from inside and outside of Guelph. So that really makes a sort of different community. And Veronica is one of our members too. So she makes up our community, and there's a different quirk for each club.
Mhm. So it's not a requirement to be a student to join the University of Guelph Club then, is
Right.
it?
Nope. So our club is a public club. So then that means anybody can join within or outside of campus or Guelph. Even we have people from Waterloo and Kitchener also. With everything being online,
Mm-hmm.
basically anyone in the world can join.
That's awesome. No, it opens up the community for sure. I wonder if we can loop in Veronica as well into the conversation with you, Stephanie, in terms of the clientele and people that come to the table and who want to do this. Who are some of the members? Yeah. What are some of their backgrounds? And Veronica, I'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I'm one of the members.
Yeah.
So I'm a part of the university. And I mean, I've known about Toastmasters for a while just because of my father. He's been with Toastmasters for over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And he has talked about the program a lot in our family and has tried to get us involved. But as kids, we're always a little bit hesitant to get involved with what our parents are involved in. But when Stephanie got the idea to start the club at the University of Guelph, she shot me an email, and I just thought that that was the perfect opportunity for me to actually join. And yeah, it has actually been really great to see just a community that applies to students. So what you find in other Toastmasters clubs sometimes is as they age, they become centered around a certain community. And the other clubs in Guelph have been a little bit more older generation centered. So the new club that we have started is really centered on including everyone. So we've got a lot of students, we've got a lot of other older professionals, that serve as mentors and have really helped to mentor and show us kind of this huge variety of people that can come together and learn a lot from each other, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Yes, it truly does. That's amazing. That just sounds so like a wonderful community. And so the different people that come there, maybe they don't have public speaking experience, but they do. So if they're different professionals, what are some of their backgrounds?
Well, we've got a lot of students.
Okay.
So it's centered around the University of Guelph. So we are attracting a lot of students. Other than that, we've got my father's a programmer, project manager. We've got Stephanie, so master's, postdocs, students. We've got, who else do we have? Stephanie, help me out here.
We've got accountants, we
Oh.
have professional speakers.
Book authors. We had a guest speaker a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Professors.
Oh, so the community's building for sure, right? That's so great. When did what's the inception of the club? So it's fairly new.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you've already got all these people involved. That's incredible. That's incredible. Amazing. So your father's involved. He's still involved now, and is he one of the mentors then?
Right now, he's acting as the vice president of education. So he's got a slightly different role than I do. Stephanie's a little more familiar with the roles. So if you want to explain his role.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
So Vitali is a club sponsor. So club sponsors, when we charter a new club, they bring the community together and bring members together so that we can reach a certain amount of members to become official. And then we have our club mentors that come in and share their experience, share their guidance, motivate the younger members to continue and progress in their educational goals. So as VP of Education, Vitali took on this role because of his experience and a huge experience with Toastmasters. He guides us with how to run meetings and how to do different roles in the meeting. So for example, we have a timer, a grammarian, we have quizmaster, we have general evaluator, all things that help our members learn how to become better communicators, better gain confidence, and better leaders, and so on.
That's really neat. What is coming from the English teaching background? What does a grammarian do? For anybody who doesn't know, if they would wanted to investigate that role, what is that?
Yeah, it really helps with, well, one of the jobs is they actually, throughout the meeting, they count the filler words that people use. And that helps really to bring your attention to the words that you use when you speak. A lot of people, and as I use a filler word just now, a lot of people use them without realizing that they do. And so the grammarian really helps to bring attention to that. And when you have the mindset of speaking and controlling as you speak, then it really does help limit these filler words, and it does help your speaking become a lot better. So that is one of the jobs of the grammarian. Another thing that they do is they present a word of the day. So that helps expand the club's vocabulary. And a lot of the words, which has been actually surprising for me, is they were presented in the club, kind of arbitrary words. I never thought that I'd come across them ever. But as reading, for example, job descriptions, I come across these words and now I know what they mean. Before, you would just look at the sentence in general and understand what it means without focusing on these words that you don't really understand. But now I can understand all the words in the sentence, and it's funny sometimes coming across that.
It totally is. Yeah, I find that funny. Language is funny. It's fun. It's exploratory, right? That's so cool. So you're building your toolkit of vocabulary, right? Tools as you go. We all have the kit, and we just kind of pull them out at different times and sharpen them, right? That's really, it's almost like doing a crossword, for example. You're building your vocabulary that way. That's really neat. Jane, anything you wanted to ask at this point?
I was just actually curious how Veronica, you and Stephanie knew each other, because you had mentioned that Stephanie had shot you an email. So I was just curious how that started up.
Yeah, cool.
Through my dad, really. Well, yeah, he's been a part of Toastmasters for a while now, and both he and Stephanie were part of Guelph Public Speakers. So
Okay.
I assume that's how you two met, right, Stephanie? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And through my dad, really, I think he introduced me to Stephanie to try and get me more involved in the graduate, I think, community at University of Guelph, because I was really interested in graduate studies and finding out about them. And so Stephanie was kind to offer me tours of the University of Guelph and kind of help me learn more about that. And then later down the road, we hadn't communicated for a little while, but she got me back into Toastmasters that way.
Cool. I was also wondering, so do you guys do any outreach to get new members into your club, or is that all organic?
Yeah, so that's actually part of my position as Vice President of Public Relations. Every week, so we have a web page and we upload material to there. But in addition to that, we do outreach through our social media. And so every week I create flyers. And one thing we do to promote our club and to try to get the community involved is we have guest speakers each meeting. So last meeting, for example, we had Dr. Andy Robinson, who is a genetics professor at the University of Guelph.
Nice.
So having a professor speaking, that actually attracted a lot of the student community to come and visit our club. And really each meeting, so we have a different speaker, which attracts a different community to come and see our club. And that's how we're trying to get a variety of people involved.
That's a really good question. I do outreach and publicity for other groups, so it's so important. It really is sort of opening up an avenue. And right now, here you are today, spotlight on youth and shining light on the work that you're doing as a youth as well. So this is an opportunity moving forward and to help to build your community as well. That's so very cool. I wondered if you can walk us through, you mentioned prepared presentations, prepared speeches. What is that about if someone was interested in being a part of the club? And that could be very intimidating to someone to hear that, but in the same sense, they may need to learn that for their profession moving forward. What does that mean? Does someone help them with that? Is that can you walk us through that process?
Sure. So Toastmasters has an educational program called Pathways. And when you start, you choose which one would suit your goals best. So for example, I took on leadership development, and the beginning of the pathways are all generally the same, and then they specialize in the end. And the beginning is all prepared speeches. So your first speech is an icebreaker. You introduce yourself to the club. Veronica did hers a couple weeks ago. And we have experienced members who kind of are matched with our newer members. So actually I was matched with Veronica to help her. And if they need help or support or they want to practice, we're there for them and we guide them through that. And if they ever have any questions, we're always available for them. So there's also a very integrated mentorship program for Toastmasters too.
An icebreaker, how long would that be? Would that be a 5-minute piece or?
It's 4 to 6 minutes.
4 to 6 minutes. Yeah, nice. That sounds like a good icebreaker for sure. And what did you choose for the icebreaker?
So, well, you're supposed to introduce yourself to the club. So essentially it's about you. It was very hard to start writing about myself. I am used to writing speeches, but it's usually about other topics. And when it's focusing on you, it's a lot harder. But I just started out writing about myself, my journey through university, how hard it was. And then I tried to find a thesis within that. So my speech was centered around asking for help. So I wrote about all the different people that I ended up asking for help throughout my journey and how they helped me get to where I am now and all the experience I have now and how that's going to help me in the future.
Wow, that's really cool. Sounds awesome. In terms of shining light on other work that you are doing upcoming, how could we do that for you? How, if someone wanted to contact you or sort of be a part of the club and offer their services as a mentor, what would be a way for them to do that?
Sure. We have our Facebook group and we also have our website. And I believe the easiest way is to go through Facebook and look for U of G Toastmasters. But I can also share with you, or actually Veronica can also share with you our poster for the next meeting and also links to register and to contact us.
No, that's great. That's good to know. And it's open-ended for sure. I very much. Jane, I'm going to try and get you to jump in a little bit in terms of your team and their presentation skills, and as far as in pitching. What are some key goalposts for people when they're pitching product? What are some things to focus on?
So I would say the most important thing would be to approach it from the angle of what the other person wants. So less so of how they can help me, but more so how I can help them, if that makes sense. Because no one really wants to know how they can help me, because why would they? Like, what's their incentive? But they want to know how they can be helped. So it's about finding, let's say, a pain point of someone. What is something that they have trouble with? So for example, with retailers, we can approach them saying, do you have a problem with not having enough refrigerated shelf space for your plant-based meats? We can help you solve that problem with our product, because our product doesn't need to be refrigerated. You don't have to waste space there. You don't have to worry about it expiring. So when you're pitching a product to someone, I think, what you really want to figure out is that what they what they need, and then they're willing to listen. And actually, one advice that I've heard before is, when you're emailing people or trying to set up meetings, it's a lot harder for someone to reject you if they, if you give specific times. So, if you kind of have an open-ended ask in your email saying like, would you be free for a call sometime? They can answer sure. And then it never goes anywhere, because you might expect them to suggest something, but why would someone suggest something of their own? But if you say, are you free either Tuesday or Thursday at 4 p.m.? Then they can actually think, oh, is my calendar open? And then they might think, oh, my calendar's not open this time, but maybe on Friday I'm free. So giving people more specific things makes it more difficult for them to reject you, I find, than just having a blanket, something very vague, are you free? Yeah, I'm free, but maybe in a year.
Any questions, Stephanie or Veronica, or jump in? Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Always think about your audience. If you can make them want what you have and make them feel something, that can really convince them.
Outside of the Toastmasters Club, for you, Stephanie, how do you do that when you're presenting for your work?
Sure. With A Canada, we do have projects. They're not pitches, but we have to propose our project to the industry, and we actually have to rethink our idea and our goals in a way that the industry would be more accepting of it. So we're actually presenting to farmers and meat processors and meat plant packers. So we have to really sit down together and think about that and have meetings with them to make sure that we're meeting their needs too.
Is that more of a regimented process? You must, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, interesting. Veronica, outside of the Toastmasters Club then, is there any applicable skills that you're finding that you're applying to the work that you're doing in your studies?
Oh, for sure. So to Toastmasters, you mean?
Yeah, sort of the correlation between the skills that you're developing.
Well, I think that leadership and communication can really be applicable anywhere. Even in your daily life, I mean, you're talking to people all the time, so you can always apply that. Personally, I am always open for new opportunities, so I am always applying to new positions, always talking to potential employers. So that is somewhere where I have been applying these skills. One goal that I actually joined Toastmasters with is I am looking to apply to vet school next year.
Oh, wow.
So when you apply to vet school, normally the process has changed a little bit with the pandemic, but you actually go through 8 to 9 interviews. And they're actually called MMIs. So they're multiple mini interviews. So they're all 10 minutes long. And you're actually given a question that you get 10 minutes to think about and then 10 minutes to talk about. And if you get stuck, they follow up with questions, but it's really just centered on you. And so that's what I joined Toastmasters for, to develop these skills, and especially the impromptu speaking skills. So as Stephanie mentioned, one portion of our meeting is actually impromptu speaking. So you're being asked a question and being asked to answer it on the spot. So that is something that I find very applicable. And even in just regular interviews, you're always being asked questions that you need to answer right away that you're not always necessarily prepared for. So that's definitely something that it helps with. Now the process for vet school has changed a little bit. So it's all a computer proctored system. So they actually ask you the question through the computer and you type it out. So you're not actually applying those speaking skills anymore. They do still have just one interview that they do face-to-face through Zoom, but it's definitely not the same. I'm hoping that I will get to apply my speaking skills this next application round, but who knows what'll happen, we'll see.
Oh, so then you're speaking to missing that process then.
Mm-hmm.
Ready for it.
Yeah, a little bit. Honestly, I was getting excited.
I love that. You can do some mock interviews, right? And just, build that toolkit
Mm-hmm.
of presentation skills. That is so cool. No, that really is. It's hard to think on your feet in a lot of cases, right? So good for you for taking that on and doing it now. So, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have all this baggage while you're having to go through the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jane, what about yourself? And as you were working through that and, having to, getting ready for graduation and, all these changes going on, how did you find that you built your presentation skills from the beginning of university to you as a professional, or even the last year of you being in university? How different was that for you?
I would say, so in university, a lot of the presentation skills were more centered around, school projects. I had participated in in a few product development competitions throughout my university career. So in my undergrad and my master's, and, when you're pitching your product and what you have made, that's a bit of presentation skills there. I would say that, since starting my company, my presentation skills have definitely improved a lot. It's made me a more confident speaker, and it's also made me more aware of how I come across to other people, not just whether or not I'm shy when I speak, but how people perceive what I'm saying and the tone that I use, the cadence of your speech. Because when you do pitch competitions, you sometimes record yourself, you watch yourself so many times, you start to realize what comes across well and what doesn't. So I think that's been very interesting. And in terms of presentations, what I found is that preparing makes such a difference. The way I like to do things is to memorize as much as I can, so that when I'm actually presenting, it's not anything new. I'm not doing anything for the first time. And I find that the most polished speakers, the ones that seem the most impromptu and casual, are usually the people who memorize every single thing, from the pauses they use, to the jokes that they tell, to the expressions on their face. It's all practiced and memorized, and that's how it comes across so naturally. So it's kind of ironic that the more natural something comes across, it's usually the more unnatural it is in the preparation process.
Neat. Oh, that's cool. Veronica, anything to add to that? Stephanie? Um, that's amazing. No, it really is. I think you're definitely innovators and leaders, and your presentation skills for both of you for all of you actually, are very evident. And it's interesting that we're here talking about Toastmasters, and that you're there for those reasons to empower you as presenters and as professionals. You'll get an opportunity to mentor other people along the way because you're already learning these skills, and it may be someone outside of Toastmasters, and maybe someone in your field that you're studying to empower them to take that step forward and to not find those crippling moments, paralyzing, right? So if you were to take 5 goalposts, I guess, for Toastmasters, if someone was to join, what would be those 5 goalposts that they could focus on to help them move forward?
Goalpost meaning something that you
Yeah.
want to achieve.
Targets, yes, something to achieve, yeah, for sure.
Okay. I guess for me, it would be gaining more confidence in
Okay.
communicating and speaking,
Yeah.
communicating a message effectively to a specific audience, and learning to lead in your own way. And that can be many different things: motivating other people, giving energy to other people,
Yeah.
inspiring other people. Ooh, Veronica, do you want to help me with this?
Yes.
You're inspiring me right now.
I was going to make mine a little bit more, well, while you were speaking, I was like thinking of mine. And I was thinking more of like little steps that people can take to actually get up to where others are. So I think one big thing in Toastmasters is to actually get up there and speak for the first time. So I think that's definitely one of the first goalposts that people should have. And after you do your first one, you realize how supportive everyone is. And it is hard, it is scary, but you did it. And so after you get that first one, then it's easier to go ahead and get your others. So after that, just really building up, for each person it's different, but realizing what you need to improve. So that would be the second one. And then slowly building up that and fixing all the little things that personally you need to improve for yourself. So for me and a lot of other young people, I've noticed we speak too fast. And even right now, I'm rushing through everything that I want to say. So I think a big thing is just slowing down for me is one of the big things that I want to improve.
That's neat. And you probably have so much information you want to use for output, so that's why it's hard to slow it down, right? You just are bubbling over with knowledge and information, so that's often like
Exactly,
what
but
it is, right?
it's really knowing that the audience needs time to take this information that you're trying to tell them and process it in their head. Stephanie actually, after my icebreaker, in her evaluation, she was my evaluator. She gave an excellent evaluation and told me that people need time to process things inside their heads. And that's why you need to embrace pauses and use them so that people can make that image inside their head about what you're saying and take that information in, let it sink in and process all of it.
Stephanie, could you give us an example of what a pause might be? I don't know.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for example, in Veronica's icebreaker, she was teaching her audience through one of her experiences, and she said that it's okay to ask for help, and that's such an important message to tell people because people feel vulnerable when they ask for help. And maybe Veronica, you can actually do your little pause practice now.
I think
awesome.
the big thing is when you say a big message, you want to pause. So one of my key sentences, as Stephanie just mentioned, is that it's okay to ask for help. So in my speech, that's how I would say it. I would include that pause so that you have time to let that message sink in. Does that help?
It does. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, language is so fun. It's so interesting. We have just a little bit more time. I wanted to include everyone in this conversation tonight, and it was really important for me to include Jane and all the innovative work that she's doing as a leader in our community and communities and making change moving forward. And Jane, I wondered, and also Toastmasters for Stephanie and Veronica and all the cool things that you're doing as leaders in the community. I feel like we need more time. This is a conversation that could go on in other avenues, and would love to have a chance to meet with you again. I wondered if Jane, right now, if you had any words of advice, words of wisdom for anybody wanting to take on a leadership role in that regard and promote plant-based food and get on board with that. What would be some words of wisdom?
I would say, I think the best leaders are people who don't try to pretend that they know everything. I think oftentimes when you think of a leader, it's easy to think of someone who knows everything and, is this strong person who everyone can count on and things like that. But I think that the best leaders are ones who show vulnerability, because that allows their team to show vulnerability as well. And, no one is perfect, and you cannot hire, no matter how perfect your team is, mistakes are going to happen. And I think it's important to allow them to happen and not make them the end of the world. Things like COVID and the pandemic, these are not things that anyone could have predicted. And, if someone didn't predict the pandemic, I don't think that you can blame anyone for that, right? So a leader should be able to show vulnerability so that the people whom they're leading are able to show vulnerability as well. And if there's so much pressure on someone, it's not a nice environment to be under. For me, in my role, the way I try to lead is how I want to be led. And I think about, the good bosses I've had, the bad bosses I've had, what I like about, them and what I disliked about them. I think, with the bosses I dislike them because, I felt like my opinions weren't being taken into account, or, where I didn't really understand the process and I didn't understand, the reasoning behind decisions. And so that's what we try to do at our company, where we try to let everyone know, this is why we make these decisions. If you don't agree with it, come forward, because we're not perfect, and maybe there's something that we're not seeing. And so don't think that we know everything, because sometimes, we've had people who suggest things that are very relevant and, are things that we haven't thought about before. So, we want to, that's kind of the kind of employees I want to, people who are excited to make suggestions and want to build something with us, because I think, if I think about for myself, that's the kind of job I want to work for. And so that's kind of the environment we try to make for our company.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jane. Appreciate that. What about yourself, Stephanie?
Sure. I absolutely agree with Jane. I think a leader isn't the person that sits in a big leather chair and tells people what to do. It's really somebody that's on the same level as everyone else and serves them and provides that support that they need and sees the talent in people and helps them achieve all of their goals. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. What about yourself, Veronica?
Yeah, I think anyone can be a leader, really. And it's just setting goals for yourself and slowly achieving those goals and knowing when to reach out to people, not knowing everything, just understanding that you can reach out for help. And there are always people that are willing to help you get to where you want to be, and that you can always achieve anything that you'd like to achieve. And that's what a leader is a person who knows that and who just strives every day to do that and is willing to take in help from other people and to build themselves up and make themselves better every day.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so inspiring. Veronica and Stephanie, if someone wanted to get a hold of you at Toastmasters, how would they do that again before we head off?
Sure. Maybe the easiest way at the moment is to email uofgtoastmasters@gmail.com. And I'll send out a registration link, and I can share with you some of our PR resources too.
That's awesome. That's very cool. And Jane, if people wanted to get a hold of you and your company?
Yeah, so our company is www.neophytofoods.com. So it's NEOPHYTOFO. And we're also on Instagram at neophytofoods, I think. And if you want to email, it's just jane@neophytofoods.com.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you for spelling it out too. That's appreciated. My name is Lynn McEntee. You have been watching Youth for Change Spotlight on Youth, and I've had some wonderful guests today, Stephanie Lam, Veronica Versova from the University of Guelph Toastmasters Club, and we have Jane Ong, who is the co-founder of foods. And I have just been so inspired by listening to them speak as leaders and innovators of our communities. And I really look forward to getting a chance to chat with them again in the future. Please take a moment to follow them, follow their work, what they're doing, and Spotlight on Youth as well. If you have any ideas for Youth for Change Canada Spotlight on Youth, please get in touch with me, Lynn at youthforchange.ca. You've been watching Spotlight on Youth, Youth for Change. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.